Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Cory Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk bugle, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's bugle 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Cory Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I thought I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
And the podcast is also brought to you by OnX Maps. And with OnX Maps, you can know where you stand with the most accurate hunting GPS tech on the market with land ownership maps that work offline. Go to onxmaps.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 20% when you sign up for an app membership at onxmaps.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
We're also proud to partner with Sitka Gear, and if you go to sitkagear.com, you'll see their full line of clothing, and their tagline is turning clothing into gear, and they are doing that through advanced technology that allows you to stay in the field longer, hunt harder, and stay safer.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or BuglingBull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
And with that, Cory, we are ready to get into it.
All right, it's recording.
It's recording.
Okay.
We had to look at that, folks. I have a tendency to double punch the button here, and then we carry on for a half hour, and Cory says, hey, Randy, you forgot to turn the recorder on.
Yeah, and we lose all of the podcast gold.
Yeah. You just can't replicate it.
We have an important podcast today, so I wanted to make sure record was hit from the beginning.
Yeah, this is the one I've been looking forward to. These guys, if we were videoing this one, I've got note paper and everything, pens. I am ready. I'm taking notes.
It's the first time I've ever seen you take notes.
I know. Well, when you see what notes look like from me, you're probably, it's pretty cryptic. So
there'll be face draws and little stick figures and stuff before too long.
Yeah.
It'd be like, they make it sound really easy. You just draw a stick figure of a guy shooting an elk with a big tree and a bunch of brush.
If that's how easy it is.
Well, that's Roosevelt hunting, right? Draw a lot of trees.
Is that what we're talking about today? You promised me we brought two of the Roosevelt elk hunting experts. Not in America, in North America.
In the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we've got
maybe
Cory Ford, 1.5. Well, we'll see. We'll let the listeners judge. We've got Cory Ford and Shannon Mobbs from, what do we say, Angry Spike Productions? Is that where you're from?
Yeah.
Sure. That's Roosevelt Elk Hunting.
That's how we spread the word, or how we share what we enjoy to do,
Excellent. Well, we're excited. I had my first opportunity to hunt Roosevelt elk last year, and we were unsuccessful.
Yeah.
But we got a little taste of it. We're excited to be back, and I know Randy. We were just talking. He's it's on his high on his bucket list. So.
Yeah. In fact, I was last night I was telling Cory, man, I got an invite to go hunt Rosies in late August, and he's like, "Oh, don't go in late August." So that's I've got all kinds of questions for that kind of stuff, and I promised him. I said, "Well, I won't jab myself in the calf with a broadhead." So
if anybody's willing to fall on a broadhead, we will take him hunting with us because that is YouTube gold.
That goes viral.
Yeah. I was surprised the lengths that Dave went through to
make a name for himself.
Well, yesterday he was here and I talked to him and he's like, I was with Sitka for however long he was there for 13 years or something, and I'm trying to get this music thing going. I've been just working hours and hours. And I fall on a broadhead, and I get more fame in 30 seconds than I got in 20 years of hard work.
We're speaking of our good friend David Brinker.
The lengths that some people will go through.
Yeah,
just to be famous on YouTube.
Yeah, wow, insta famous.
Yeah. So, is this like Roosevelt Elk 101? Because Cory, you're like Elk 101.
Yeah, so that's where I'm lacking. I mean, and honestly, that's my goal. Randy and I talked last night. I want to hunt elk in every western state, and I want to hunt all the species of elk, just so I can at least somewhat intelligently speak from experience, not just from listening to guys on a podcast.
Right.
But I think from the experience I had last year, it was just a taste. I am by no means an experienced Roosevelt elk hunter now. I've never killed one, but it's whetted the appetite.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Beautiful country, yeah.
all 60 feet that you can see at a time is very beautiful.
Yeah. So for someone like me who's only hunted Rockies, what's other than the fact that when I'm over in your part of the world, you guys are based kind of in the general Portland, Vancouver area,
yeah, correct.
Right? Other than the fact that, as Cory said, you can't see more than about 30 feet, what, as someone who's never hunted Roosevelts, what's going to surprise me about their behaviors or what they do? Anything?
Very territorial.
Oh, really?
So they don't travel a lot.
Like when you say don't travel a lot, like a whitetail, like a home range of a mile by a mile? Or?
I'd say a canyon. Yeah.
A canyon?
Yeah, they rarely go out. During September, those elk are, they just don't travel much. So when that bull has his harem, they're pretty locked down, which is what you do to end up killing them. So what we do is we find as many as we can. So you do that by rubs. You do that by whatever sign you can find. And we log that. And then we go visit those elk periodically throughout the season. And on one day during that season, that bull in that canyon will be ready to go.
So when you say you log that area, you don't mean you go with chainsaws and make it so you can actually walk through it?
Trees down,
if I could do that,
I'm coming hunting with you guys.
Right.
If you're logging an area, that's not like the area to hunt.
Well, the reason that Cory said that is before we turned on the mics, we found out that these guys come from a logging background, like Cory and I do. So, okay, not logging.
You log it in a book.
Log it in a book,
note
it in my mind, or however you do it.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much, I'd say, the trick to what we do is we cover tons of ground every day, but we're going to what we, ideally later on in the season, we're going to a bull. We're not wasting time. So
you take inventory and then go and check the inventory out.
Exactly.
And while we're taking inventory, we'll check those bulls. You find a rub, bugle. If he's hot that day, there's no reason to leave and go look for other bulls.
Right.
I mean, we'll hunt him right then.
And because they have such a small territory, that they're in there. If he doesn't answer, he's just not ready because he's not. He's there. He's just not talking.
Or just can't hear us because where he was rubbing, where we find him, he could just be around a ridge. And I mean, if in that country your bugle doesn't travel as far as it does if you're hunting Idaho or Wyoming or something. So trying to get them to hear you is a different story, or be close enough to generate a reaction out of them.
Yeah.
So they'll respond that readily that if they hear a bugle, they're gonna say, "Hey, this is my spot. Get out of here."
Exactly. Yeah. And so you take that, and we just charge right in on them. There is no joking around.
That.
Right straight in their face, and more often than not, they turn and meet us. So, and that's the key. You're not going to see them. You're not going to glass them up. So if you're jumping around, you find one that's vocal, more often than not, I can call them in to get a good look at them, maybe get a shot. Once you get within that, 50 yards or so, then you're just tossing coins in the air because the wind, as you've seen, it swirls a lot.
Yeah.
And the brush, the terrain, it may or may not end up being with a shot, but more often than not, he'll meet me before I get to his cows or whatnot.
So are you calling when you say you go straight charge at him? Are you calling as you go in?
I'd say the approach is the call in. I do check him, and I want him to know I'm coming. A lot of that is the sound of me getting to him. So you've seen elk posturing. They do their thing. They come through. They're breaking branches. So just by us walking through the woods, it sounds like that. So, and that is building his anxiety. And as we're getting closer, he's getting, prepared for defending his,
he's like, this is my
his right
bedroom.
to breed. Yeah.
And so I'm guessing you probably don't worry too much about blowing them out of a canyon if they're that territorial. I mean, if you bump them, they're probably going to be right back on the same bench.
That's probably the biggest fear I have is if I bump them, if they wind me and they do blow out of that canyon, then he's going to lose that desire to protect.
Gotcha.
So that's the last thing I want to do. And if the wind is wrong, I will not hunt him.
Yeah.
I mean, even if he's screaming, if the wind's wrong, I will come back on a different day. Because if he's out of that canyon, I no longer know where he is. Mm-hmm. And he's probably not going to be as vocal if he's in another bull's territory.
Gotcha.
So ideally, when I do decide to hunt him, it's the perfect conditions.
So if just what I'm gathering here is this is heavy on the archery tactics.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. What's the success rate in archery season compared to rifle season?
Where we hunt?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's almost impossible to kill a Roosevelt in the areas that we hunt with a rifle.
Right.
It just really is. If you can't call them, you have no idea they're even there.
Yeah,
you're not. We try to focus on areas that are away from clear cuts. We might hunt the periphery. We don't want to find them in the open, which is obviously the only places that the rifle hunters are going to find them.
Yeah.
So you find them in big stands of timber that the only way you're going to ever locate them is by a bugle. With a rifle, it's going to be virtually impossible.
Just because the rifle season's there, it's post rut and they're done.
And they might catch them in a road. So we hunt mostly public land.
Yeah.
So national forest, which they haven't logged in 25 years.
Okay.
So it's thick.
Yeah.
The roads are not kept, so it's hard to get down them. So you're walking a lot, you're riding a bike, you're driving little Suzuki Samurais or whatever you got to do to get around that country. But a rifle hunter, I'd say their success rate is probably significantly lower in the areas that we're focusing. Mm-hmm. So the bulls we're hunting are probably on average 5 to 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a little bit more mature animal.
Yeah.
Then you're going to find around them, the clear cuts and the open areas. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can kill them in those areas too. It's just where we tend to not focus, because the style that we hunt, that just lends to a more of an advantage for us rather than trying to call one across a clear cut or somehow sneak in on one. Mm-hmm. We want those bigger stands of timber. Yeah. We want that old growth. We would prefer to have it be, really nasty, brushy right off the road where most people just drive by. But once you drop down in and get to where he's living, it's going to be park-like. You're going to be walking through, chest-high ferns. You're not going to have the salmonberry and all the stuff that you deal with that are up higher. You're going to drop down in, and you're going to find that he lives in an area that's actually very comfortable for him, as opposed to what you see when you're up, where you're driving around on ridgetops and locating from there. From the road, as Cory, you experienced last year, from the road, everything looks bad.
Yeah. Everything is bad from the road.
It is. And then
getting there is the hardest part. Now, where these bulls call home, it's usually pretty nice.
And what I found, and it made sense to me, but they seem to live on the fringe of that thick stuff, and they immediately could retreat there and disappear. Yeah. And so they love that park area. It's open, they can see, but the second they detect danger, hear something, smell something, they're in that thick stuff. And there's, hands and knees, there were several times we had to back out. I'm like, I can't go forward anymore. We have to crawl backwards to get to a point where we can start crawling through the brush to make it through the brush. It was that thick and nasty.
Yeah.
Wow, you're talking me out of it.
No, these guys, that was exciting to hear that, the old growth, the park, because that's, I don't know if you guys watched, I think it was day 4, day 5 when I missed that bull.
Yep.
That was like my dream Roosevelt setup. Just that old growth with green moss on everything, but you could see for 50 or 60 yards and that coastal fog coming up out of the bottoms. And
Yeah, it was picture perfect. Right
It
there.
was.
Yeah.
Other than the shot.
So what are the dates of your archery season?
So the Oregon season is the last weekend of August.
Okay.
And then I think it's 4 consecutive weekends after. So that season moves
Based on
and
the
then
calendar.
resets. Exactly.
Yeah.
So from what I've found, the later in September you are, the better off you are. So you have the most data available, the most rubs you're going to see by that last week. The bulls are extremely vocal. They usually have all their cows. They're all, the pecking order's been established and they know who they are this year. If I had 1 week to hunt, it would be the last week of season, whatever that weekend is, or week is.
That's interesting
Yeah.
because a lot of people I've talked to have said too early is too early, but earlier is better. Once they kick in and start really rutting, you want to hunt them then because after that there's more pressure. People push them around. They get their cows. They're harder, and so that's.
Yeah, there's not a lot of pressure in the areas we hunt now. I'm going to emphasize we hunt areas that most people just don't go.
Yep.
There's no road in the bottom. People don't like packing 1,000-pound animal out of the bottom of those.
Yeah.
In order to be successful year after year, you got to do that kind of stuff. So
You got to find those pockets where.
we don't shy away from wherever we get an answer.
Yep.
Yeah, and what we find too a lot of times is you'll get opening weekend will be very busy.
Yeah.
You see more guys in the woods driving around. Labor Day weekend will be fairly busy because it's a 3-day weekend, and most people will take that first kind of Labor Day weekend and pigtail their vacation off of that. And then after that first week, the number of guys that you see out there, whether they just don't have the time to take off or they're frustrated because there's just no elk here, so they retreat and go start hunting clear cuts, because a lot of archery guys are converted from old rifle hunters, which, I mean, we all probably are.
Right.
Growing up, that's what I did. So it was just always go back to what was easy, where we just stick to the exact same game plan the whole season through. We don't adapt. I mean, we only adapt to the areas that we're in, but we don't adapt to anything other than that.
If you haven't experienced what we've experienced, you want to go see elk.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't care to see elk until he's within shooting distance.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm the same. I prefer, even Rocky Mountain, I would rather hunt thick, dark timber with open shooting lanes because you can move around better without being seen. You can get set up, you can get in close, put pressure on them. And so it just takes it to a whole new level over there because you can get as close as you want to without being seen.
Right. And people like to see elk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
That's why we enjoy like mule deer hunting after elk season, because you get to see a ton of animals. This is really cool. But during elk season, I mean, we'll go days and days without even seeing. I mean, we'll maybe get lucky and have a cow run across the road in front of us first thing in the morning or something. But I mean, you could go several days without seeing elk. You're still finding sign, but like Shannon said, until you find that one that's ready to fight, it might be a few days in between. And even then, you still might not necessarily see them. You might work a bull and never see them because you might back out because the wind's wrong, the terrain setup is just different. Weather conditions can change and screw things up too. So, we don't get too hung up on trying to see them.
So as territorial as they are, if you say, well, last year we had a bull in this drainage and then 4 drainages over, we had another one. Are they gonna be in those same places year after year?
yeah, I believe they probably live or born and die in that same area.
So they don't migrate for winter or anything.
No.
I mean, they just live in that pocket.
Yeah. So I will go to the same bull year after year after year.
Yep.
They don't really get smarter year end over year end, but if I hunt him one day and mess up, then it's hard to kill him after that. But
For that entire season?
For that season. But the next year, it's as if he completely forgot
Reset
about it.
button.
So,
See, and I've said that. People always say that elk get call shy. Year after year, elk get call shy. I don't think they have that memory. I think by September, they're getting reprogrammed and re-educated, but it's not I think a bigger bull is just smarter, and he's more wary, but it's not from experience of getting pressured season after season.
Exactly. He's less likely to repeat the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think they ever get call shy.
Yeah.
I think they get cautious.
Yeah.
But I've called the same Roosevelt in 3 times and spooked him on purpose to see if he would not come in the next time. We called him Yo-Yo. He just kept coming in. It's a great video. He wasn't a big bull. We weren't going to kill him, but I just wanted to see, hey, I'm going to spook this thing. I'm going to come back tomorrow. And I called him in 3 times. So,
that's crazy.
so he clearly wasn't remembering.
Is he
what
still
was
alive?
good question.
I need to elk like that. I need to start hunting yo-yo elk.
Yeah. And we talked about this a lot of times. These elk, they can't fathom the idea that a human can make that sound too. So they're never going to say, oh, that's a human. I'm not going to go into that. They have to anticipate every single bugle they ever hear is another elk coming in trying to take their cows. So, that memory thing is tricky for them because it's you're fighting against instinct too. So there's always the play on that as well.
And I agree. Like when you call in an elk and they come in and they wind you or they see you, in my mind, I think they still think there was another elk there. There just happens to be danger that got in between them and they're out of there. So I just don't buy into the whole call shy elk thing. They get more pressured. They're more educated from that pressure during that season. But by the next season, you hunt them early, and that same bull's going to be stupid on the day that
fresh start.
You get a fresh start on him.
Yep.
And
And because of the terrain that we hunt in, what we were talking about earlier, we don't worry about a rifle hunter killing the bulls that we've located the year before. So we'll go right back and check those bulls again the following season because they're probably likely to still be there, be alive, be in that same canyon. In fact, we've got one bull in particular that we've targeted the last 2 years periodically that he lives in the exact same canyon. It's just a matter of which area of the canyon he's going to be in. So it might take a few days to find him, but then once you do, then you can hunt him. Yeah. He just happens to be a great big old smart bull. I showed you a picture of him. He was the bull I had at full draw at 12 feet. Didn't have a shot. I had no open shot to shoot. Shannon had him this year and just overran him, basically.
I overran him. I just got too excited. We made mistakes on him. Yep. He should be dead. If it wasn't for our own mistakes, he would be. So, and it wasn't that he's so smart that he was beating us at the game. He said we were beating ourselves.
So in the world of Rockies, you'll see 4 ridges that all look the same, but for some reason that I can never detect, one of those 4 ridges is where they hang out and do most of their rutting. It's where you find all the rubs. It's for some unknown reason in September, that one ridge year after year is the place they like to be. Is it similar to that, or is it?
Well, no. I think these Roosevelts go get their cows and bring them back to their home. So unlike a breeding area, I think Rockies do that a lot. They'll go to a certain basin.
Right.
The entire herd goes to that basin. It's got the food and water and cover whatever they want. And then that's where they do their breeding. I think these Roosevelt actually go get cows, bring them home, and then do their thing. And these big bulls are content having 4 or 5 cows.
Oh, really? So that's a harem for him.
Usually it's not much bigger than that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So and a lot of times we're not dealing with little satellite bulls, which for Rockies I found to be the most challenging thing.
Yeah.
Is you got 5 or 6 other bulls making your bugles just background noise.
Yeah.
So Roosevelt, it's really not the case. Every now and then we'll run into a spike or a little 4 or 5 point that in order to get to the big bull we got to get in between them. So we'll just spook that one away. And a lot of times that's how we get to be the closest threat to that bull. So I don't think there's areas that is where they all go to breed. It's that bull gets cows from wherever he needs to get them.
Yep.
It may be a mile away, and then he'll bring them back because in the area there's not a ton of elk sign where we're finding these big aggressive bulls. There's just bull sign from year over year over year.
Lots of old rubs.
So I know he's there every September.
Yeah, and we spook them with a strategy, though, too. Push that smaller bull out, instantly bugle become that more dominant, aggressive bull that's moving in. There's a reason why that spike or something's running off, right? Yeah. So that he doesn't startle the herd and take everything else with him. So there's strategy behind even just kicking the little ones out of the way to get in closer to the big one.
So with the terrain being like it is, just so hard to hear elk bugle, and with them being so small in herd size and not having satellite bulls, and with them being so territorial, do you usually only hear 1 bull bugle at a time? You aren't getting in a canyon and having 6 bulls light off.
Rarely do we hear more than 1 from where we locate.
Yeah.
And once we hear one, it's just, all attention is focused on that. Study the terrain, use the technology we have today, which is an amazing step forward from what we had, 15, 20 years ago. But, we'll study it. And we find them in common places. You find them in nice little benches or flat bottoms to these drainages or whatnot. So then we just establish a plan to get to him. And I want him to know I'm coming there. So I would like to be a straight shot from across the canyon down and over to him, or some way that he's aware that I'm on my way. I don't like to relocate. Like, oh, he's on that side, we'll go over there and come down on top of him, because I think that
throws him off.
I don't think they like it.
I don't think
they like it. Yeah, because they think there's a bull there bugling, his attention's there, and all of a sudden they got one behind him. It seems to not work out as I would hope it does usually.
Which comes into thermals, because for us, we'll get on a ridge and we'll cover a ton of country looking for the canyon that has the herd or the bulls, and sometimes we'll get 4 or 5. That's ideal, and you get 4 or 5 bulls bugling in one area. You can go and mess up a couple and still have more to play, and it turns into a day-long hunt. And you have to continually pay attention to the thermals. But over there, I noticed there were several days there weren't thermals. It was wind, like true coastal wind. It's like, oh, the wind's coming off the ocean today, and it's blowing straight up the hill all day. Yeah. And then the next day it's calm and you've got normal thermals, and the next day it's blowing side hill. And so it's almost more like whitetail hunting in that, hey, this bull's in this canyon. If the wind's coming off the ocean, we can't hunt him today. We've got to wait for a different wind.
Yeah, well, our mountaintops are maybe 2,000 feet tall. So there isn't a lot of elevation to get those thermals. And so it's not something we even we don't even consider it. What time of day is it? Is the thermals going to change? It's not.
Check prevailing winds in the morning just to kind of get a general idea of the direction. Like you're saying, is it coming in from west and blowing to east, or do we have an east wind today, or is it coming from the north? Just once you get that established, then you can, once you're relocating in that canyon, you can try to decide, okay, which angle are we coming in from, or which area will we locate from? Because a lot of times we'll have 2 or 3 entry points into a canyon picked out. So get to that one that's going to be advantageous wind-wise and call from there.
So I think that plays into being able to go straight at the elk, where a lot of times in the mountains, you can't do that because the thermals are changing. Right. You might go downhill and it's downhill, and you turn the other side and it's uphill if it's on the south face or something. But with the prevailing winds, if you hunt the area right from the beginning, when you get an elk to bugle, you can go straight at him.
Yeah. And we experienced that last year a lot in Wyoming too. Multiple bulls, winds changing, shifting all over the place. It makes it challenging from that standpoint.
Different.
Sometimes the wind's blowing right at them at first, but odds are it's not doing that where they are.
Yeah.
So we'll push the envelope on that quite often. We'll go another 30 yards and see what the wind's doing there. Oh, okay. Well, now it's going this way.
Yeah. And I wonder if the wind, I always say it does like a 90-degree fan from where you're at in open country. I wonder if it's tighter, if you can get away with more aggressive approach just because of the terrain, that the wind doesn't dissipate in quite as broad of a fan.
Yeah, that all plays into how quick from the time we locate them to the time I want to get an arrow in them, I want it as short a time as possible.
Yeah.
So, and because of the wind for one part is, I don't know what it's going to do in 10 minutes. So, I almost run to get onto them as fast as I can and get it over with.
Yep. Get it over with.
because the work comes when you're packing them out.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I killed a bull a few years back, and it took maybe 20 minutes to kill him. Located him down the hill. He came in, killed him. 20 minutes. And the bull's down on the ground. So
with a 4-yard, quarter 2 frontal shot.
Wow.
So it was.
So that's an ideal situation. That's what I want to try to recreate every time.
Yeah, but then my first Oregon archery bull that I killed with Shannon was, that was about a 6-hour hunt. Yeah. From the time we originally located him, and we had to get down and wait for winds to change, that kind of thing. It was napping in the bottom of a canyon, hanging out until that day we had thermals, until they were either coming up the creek draw or blowing down the creek draw, and so then we would wait for the wind to switch, and we would then move, and then check wind, hunker down if we had to, and that process took a long time. So it can vary. It's not nearly as consistent as in the morning it's going to be blowing down, and in the afternoon it's going to be blowing up, like you get if you're hunting.
We get little fronts that move in throughout the day, so off the ocean. So.
Or you get a day of sea fog and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It just sounds like it's raining all day. And that was the craziest thing was you get that sea fog come in, and he's like, "Oh, we aren't going to be able to hear anything today." And I'm like, "What do you mean? What aren't we going to be able to hear?" And he said, "It's going to sound like a downpour out there." And you get in there, and just from the fog condensating on the leaves and then dripping out of the leaves onto the ground, you were in a downpour, and you couldn't hear anything. It's just a solid rain.
Yeah, and your bugle doesn't carry because of the density of the air. And so if we get a day like that, or if it's a day where it is raining, we'll usually we won't even hunt that day. wait, if maybe it'll let up and we'll go out in the afternoon or something, but that's a camp day.
There's a couple reasons why. Is I find to kill these bulls, it's better to have those cows when they're bedded down, because that bull is going to have no choice but to come to you.
Yeah.
So if they're all on their feet.
Shannon, why is that? Explain to me.
I think the cows get kind of nervous about the situation as well, and they'll more often move off.
Okay, but if they're bedded?
If they're bedded, those cows are comfortable.
Okay.
And they're not going to do it. So we target our elk. We're hunting all day. I don't really get up at the crack of dawn. I hunt them throughout the day, but I usually kill most of them between like 11 and 2 in the afternoon.
The cows are bedded.
The cows are bedded. It's 70-degree weather. It's beautiful weather. If it's raining, a lot of times they're feeding all day. They're moving around. So you might get a bull that's extremely vocal, but every time you get close to them, they just kind of meander off. So
are they vocal in the middle of the day still? Are you able to get them to talk all day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. They're not as vocal,
But they'll answer.
But if I'm hammering we target social status. So we were a herd bull, whether he's 200 inches or 300 inches, it doesn't really matter. But in that area, he's the king of the jungle. So usually if I challenge him, he will react to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the reaction isn't a bugle. He's raking a tree. I can hear him, shaking an alder. He's breaking brush. He's kind of walking around nervously. So that's really what I'm listening for, is just any sign of an elk and not necessarily just a bugle.
Gotcha.
So he might moan or squeak or squeal or something, but something to tell me he's there in the right area that I found enough sign, and at the right time of day where I'm pretty convinced that the cows are sitting there chewing their cud or doing whatever they're doing,
So if you find sign, there's a good chance that bull's going to be within 400, 500 yards of you.
I believe
somewhere.
that if I find sign, he can hear me.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not. But that's how I approach it.
Mm-hmm. So Rockies, sometimes you'll hear a bugle a mile away.
Right.
You guys, is that?
Unique situations, you can hear a mile in that country.
Yeah. Okay.
Even a couple hundred yards might sound like a mile. Especially if they're on your side of the hill below you, they're just so dense. Mm-hmm. And if it's a little wet or damp, it just sucks up that that sound.
Okay.
So, yeah, as high as I can get in a canyon, I want to hammer that canyon. Any reaction is a good reaction. So,
in the world of Rockies, a lot of times the cows choose where the breeding is going to happen based on they need food, and so the bulls go to where the cows have accumulated, and the bulls will have their groups and they'll move them around and whatever, but a big struggle a lot of people have in the world of Rockies is just finding elk, which you guys are probably laughing because you can see for 3 miles. It's like, how can you not find an elk when you can see that far? But I think that in my experience, and I still have the problem at times of I get my mind somewhere else and I'm not focusing on food to find Rockies. But is there something that you say, all right, we know this canyon has these attributes or these factors, or this area has these attributes and these factors, therefore there's going to be elk in there? Is it a food?
There's no lack of food on the coast.
There's food. There's
food everywhere.
Lack? Okay.
Yeah.
And there's water everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with them, if you say that food, water, sanctuary,
there's cover everywhere.
It is covered.
So it's a very random. I mean, to the outsider, it probably seems very random.
They could be anywhere.
To you guys who do it a lot, you're like, well, I still know there's little signs on the landscape I can read here that make it a lot less random than you think it is.
Yeah. Computer scouting is big for that. Just tearing terrain apart on whether you're looking at Google Earth or any of the mapping applications, just finding those canyons that look like they would be more appropriate for elk, stuff that we've found them in the past. Like Shannon was saying, we find a lot of, you get down into the bottom of some of these canyons and some of them are really wide and flat, but you won't know that until you get down to the bottom of it. And that's where they tend to congregate. They don't particularly love hanging out on hillsides, especially that are steep. And those canyons on the coast can be pretty steep. So once you get down in there, you'll find the ones that they tend to favor more times than not. But there is food, water, and cover everywhere. So just whatever other terrain attributes you can find that we've seen them consistently in, you can even find them just by looking at topo maps.
What about wallows? That was a thing that surprised me, was It's wet. It's cool. It's never hot there. I mean, it's not like 80 degrees. When it's 80 degrees in the mountains on September 15th, a bull's going to be at a wallow at 10 a.m.
It might be 80 degrees, but that's out in the open.
Right.
Where these elk are, it's
Just
rarely
cool and shady all
Yeah,
day.
it's
So do they
rarely.
use wallows?
They do. They wallow, but
Consistently?
I wouldn't say consistently. I wouldn't hunt a wallow.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a waste of your time. But because it's just, I can't predict it, and I haven't focused on them enough to actually establish some sort of pattern to it. So
Yeah. I asked because Brent had a trail camera on a wallow last year, and there was a bull in there that we hunted. It was bugling. We got in on it a couple times, and he checked the trail camera, and that bull had been to the wallow every day from like August 17th until it was like August 28th when we were checking it. And I thought, it's not even, there were bears in the wallow, like swimming in the wallow, and I just thought, it's not even hot. Why are they wallowing? But it seems like that early season, it was somewhat consistent on that wallow, that bull. That's my only experience.
I mean, the
with
great
them.
thing about a wallow, it's more likely a bull.
Yeah.
I know cows and whatnot can play in the mud too. And
Yeah.
bear do it a lot.
Yep.
So you find elk tracks in a wallow, and there's probably elk relatively close. So that would pique my interest for sure. But it would be no more of a data point than a big rub.
Right. Just there's elk here. I'm going to go put a tree stand and sit here and wait for an elk to come in.
Yeah, we put a camera on a wallow a couple of years ago just to see, but we didn't find it until mid-September, and the bull never ever came back. He just never hit it. We just left the camera there because we just happened to have some. So,
and if I had to
just
guess, early in the season, they're still trying to figure out where those cows are. They're getting those cows, so they're traveling a little bit. Once they get them, you might find Wallows where he is now.
Right.
But that's probably where you're going to kill him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And in August on the coast down there, it can get 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And that humidity, I think, might play with them a little bit more too, because they get hot. It's not the dry, warm. 90 degrees in Wyoming's different than 90 degrees on the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
You're sweating at 90 degrees on the coast.
Yeah, I'm sure. Are you guys wearing a lot of rain gear or something else when
we
it's
always
this
have rain gear with us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like I said, I don't like hunting in the rain. I think it's
I don't either.
counterproductive.
I hate it.
No, I don't.
Because
that's
it
a
usually-
reason why I went to archery hunting. It's beautiful weather.
Oh, is it nicer that time of year than in the later?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Way nicer.
I don't like it because I hate ruining $5,000 cameras. That's just the tightwad in me.
Yeah, well, for sure.
And it does. We had a tent trailer, which is the first time I've hunted from a tent trailer. It's usually a tent and a little bit more remote. We had a tent trailer. We had a generator. We had a heater in it. All of the luxuries, and we couldn't dry stuff out. Like we would get so wet during the day, and just with the humidity at night and the condensation, we'd wake up in the morning with everything still wet. Camera gear you couldn't dry out. It was
just because of the ambient humidity so high. There's not enough transfer of.
Yeah, we've created a heating system or a drying system. We hunt with cab over campers, and we tow our little SUVs, little Suzuki Samurai or Chevy Trackers, and so that's what we use to run around in. So we leave our truck and camper at our base camp, and then get in our little rigs and drive those around because they're way more advantageous to getting down some of these roads. But in our campers at night, we got little space heaters or something we'll put in our showers. And then we'll just turn those on, let them run, hang our clothes in there, dry them out. Next morning you get out and you're good to go.
Almost like an oversized toaster or something.
Pretty much, yeah. Vent, just crack the vent so that the air can pop out. And then whether you leave your furnace on and warming it up that way or just run a little space heater, tends to dry it out.
There's an advantage to being mobile like that, too, because we'll hunt the entire Oregon Coast Range in a season.
Oh, wow.
I'll hunt 2 or 3 days in one area. And then I find when I go to a new area that the elk haven't heard me, they're more reactive to me. So the first day in an area is usually the best day for me. If I can go find a bull, he answers, more than likely I can kill him.
Yeah.
Now, if I've hunted him several days or tried locating him several days in a row, I become just, that bull again. So
a lot of times when we're trying to ease in on Rockies, it's the cows that'll mess you up.
Right.
Is that what you find with Roosevelts, or are the bulls so aggressive that the way you do it?
When it all works out like I plan, those cows never know we're there.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that bull's dead, and those cows are still over there bedded down.
Really?
Yeah. More often than not, that's how it works out on a successful hunt.
Okay.
Now, if we push them or something, then, now we're dealing with the entire herd. But more often than not, when I approach him, he meets me before I ever get to his cows.
So are you set up at that point? Like, do you?
I don't set up.
You just go
It's
until you hear
dynamic.
him
It's
close.
very dynamic. Yeah, I quit setting up years ago because the bull would swing around. In this country, you can see 10 yards in places, so I could never predict the terrain enough to figure out where he's going to come from.
Just pushing in on him until he breaks loose and comes to you. And
I think the most effective way is the caller is the shooter. The elk is coming to that sound anyway.
Whoa,
so yeah,
that's completely different than what we try to do.
It is, right. You guys want a little separation.
Yeah.
You want to be able to move around, get that elk to come in front of you.
And a lot of it's the visual part.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
right.
really, you want the caller separated from the shooter, so the bull has to come to where he can see the caller
That curtain, yeah.
and have the shooter in range. Whereas if in that country, you can be the shooter and caller,
And-
the bull can be 12 yards from you and you can't see each other.
Exactly. So that bull's going to come up and he's going to want to see as well.
Yep.
So, and he gets to a point he can see where that elk should be, and that's ideally where we shoot him. So, no, and if Cory's hunting and I'm right behind him calling or something, and we're literally this close.
Yep.
You know, so I'm working the bull right beside him. So they're
And then we run camera right beside the caller shooter too, so everything stays together. There is no separation of noise to keep everything kind of dynamic as one fluid piece moving through.
There are situations where you get an open area and you can do that, but it's rare.
This is really intriguing. If I thought I wanted to go do it before, I really want to go do it.
And these bulls just come charging in.
Yeah.
Absolutely charging. And when it all works out, his head is down, he'll look right through you standing there because he's looking for an elk. And he's just got his eyes are squinted and he's just dripping at the nose. And he's just ticked off.
Eyes rolled back.
Because he can't understand why are you challenging me
In my area.
I've established this, respect it.
Yep.
So that's just amazing. And if you've seen any of my videos, so they just come screaming. They just come flying in on you.
And that's the thing I think that's intrigued me is they seem so much tougher than a Rocky Mountain elk when they come in. I mean, just there's a fire in their eyes, big rippling white bodies with those red antlers, and it's just it's almost a completely different species.
Yeah.
We have people tell us all the time, like, I would want to see a fight between a 250-inch Roosevelt and a 350-inch Rocky because I think that Roosevelt's going to tear him up.
Yeah.
Just because their aggression is much different, but they think that they are the only one where, like when in Wyoming last year, the elk that we were hunting, we got into a spot that had just the bull to cow ratio was far too high. There were far too many bulls in that area that there was no challenging of anything. Everything just kind of moved as one big unit fluidly, but there was no aggression within that entire herd. Where, in Oregon, when we're hunting the coast there, you get that one bull that's fired up and he will literally run you over to defend what he's got going on.
Yeah.
The bull that Shannon killed at 4 yards that bull wouldn't have stopped. He would have walked right past him if it wasn't for, he lifted his head up and saw our camera guy standing there and he was like, whoa. I mean, you actually see him kind of pull his head back like, what? And then Shannon shoots him.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This textbook really was.
Mm-hmm.
Any different calling sequences or calling techniques than what?
I think over the years I've learned and from watching them reacting to me is that initial bugle I do, I just kind of scream and get their attention. And I watched elk and they'll look up at you, they'll turn their ears. So I'll do another bugle right behind it with a little chuckle at the end. And more often than not, that second bugle gets the answer. So I'll scream, I'll wait about 10 seconds maybe, and then I'll do it all over again with a little chuckle. So, and I find that gets more answers than your perfect
One bugle by itself, he raises his head and listens for more, and if you don't answer him, he goes back to what he was doing. So if you hit him with the second one, you got his attention.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's other sounds out there too. If you're in an area where they might be logging, you get the sounds of the talkie tutors and the stuff that they're making, and a lot of squeals of the machinery or things like that. A lot of times you're like, you kind of look around, was that a bugle? Or there's certain birds on the coast that sound like elk, which is weird. But there's other noises, so I think they're probably checking to make sure that was, unless you're close enough to elicit a reaction right away, which every once in a while you are.
Yeah, he'll just hammer you before you're completely done. So.
Yep.
But I also I'm not going to pretend that I understand the language. It's, I don't, but I think bugling is very primitive.
Yeah.
That it means a lot of things different times. So I'm basically just screaming at him
Yeah.
And he's screaming back at me. So whether you do that, herding or mating or subdominant bull to dominant, I don't know, but I'm just screaming in his face and he's reacting to it.
Yeah.
So
I'm the same way. I don't get tired. And maybe there is an actual language they speak, and each different sound means something different. In my experience, it's just that emotional response.
Exactly.
They want to fight. And if you can elicit that, get in their face and scream.
Yeah, and I don't bugle a lot. I mean, I just want them reacting to it. Yeah. So when majority of my calling is me moving towards him. So that sound and that approach, I think these elk do this in nature, is they go to each other, they eyeball each other, they walk in parallel to each other, and then usually one of them runs off. Yeah. And that's, I think, what they're expecting to happen. So that's exactly what I do. I walk right to them, and then they'll come up to look at the other one, and ideally we shoot them.
Yep.
So...
Yeah, every once in a while I have to.
Shannon, you make this sound so fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
When it works right.
And it's really fun in October when you're pulling all the salmonberry out of your fingertips and the devil's club out of your hips.
Remembering the hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather just have a set of Roosevelt antlers and a freezer full of meat to remember it. That was my least favorite part, was just the terrain as far as the brush. And the terrain is no different. It's steep, there's some rugged stuff, there's all that. But you add brush that you can't navigate through and try to go up a steep hill, it wears you out. Just to go 200 yards up some of that stuff, it's like
super loose dirt. Yeah. You're taking steps, you're taking 2 steps to gain 1.
You
there's
can't see
areas
the ground most of the time. So you're feeling it. But so a mile in that country is completely different than a mile.
Oh, absolutely. We did 7 miles there one day on the coast. Yeah. I felt like we'd done a 16-mile day in Wyoming. Yeah. Literally, my legs, my feet, everything were just sore. My back was sore. Mm-hmm. I thought we only did 7 miles. This is a morning hunt. And it wore me out.
Yeah, and that terrain, too, will dictate many times how much you actually bugle, because sometimes if you drop into a canyon, you might have to relocate him based on what you see once you get down there, because if you can't see anything or pick the terrain apart, because occasionally a bench will not look like a bench until you get standing right on it, because the vegetation just doesn't allow it to appear that way. So he might be down into a canyon and just around a knob, and even though you're looking at a topo map of you should know exactly where you're at, you might have to relocate and call a couple times. Okay, now we know exactly where he is. And from there, we can really work in on him. So that terrain will dictate a lot of times if you need to bugle a bunch. That 4-yard bull was pretty open in there. You could see a decent amount of distance, and so once we dropped in on him, we didn't have to relocate. We just hit him a couple times, worked in, and then stopped. And that bull came walking right to us, came up over a ridge, and drilled him. That was it. It was game over.
Yeah, there's times where we'll go down, dive down in, and we won't hear the bull again. Mm-hmm. And this country's very cut up.
Yeah.
So a lot, you'll get below a ridge line, and you'll no longer hear the bull. So you have to kind of understand that and not get discouraged by it.
But what do you mean? I'm trying to visualize this. So you drop down, all of a sudden you can't hear him because of the topography is blocking the noise?
Exactly. Or you're not loud enough for him to hear you, or vice versa. He's not loud enough to hear you.
He might be 150 yards just on the backside of a ridge. Uh-huh. And in Wyoming or Idaho or something, we can hear him 4 ridges away on the backside of a ridge.
Right.
There, he might not even be able to hear you 150 yards away and answer, or you might not be able to hear his answer.
So studying where he is in the beginning is very important, because I still want to continue that progress towards him. And eventually I'm going to get to the point where I can hear him again, or I have to back out and hear him again to reconfirm where he was. So that does happen quite often, that we have to reevaluate what we're doing when we drop down in on him.
I'm screwed. I can only hear out of my right ear, so I walk around the woods thinking everything's to my right.
Just walk with your head to the left.
The good news, I didn't see any grouse when we hunted over there, so
I might cross.
Are there
off
grouse
the
there?
list.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, we've got to the point where we hunt them with slingshots.
I was going to say, you in thick brush with those grouse, we might not find you.
What kind of grouse are we talking?
Mostly rough.
Yeah.
Mostly roughs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's a few blues here and there, but mostly roughs.
I'm going. If I wasn't going to be gone this late September. What's the limit?
Is there one?
Yeah, it's 2 a day.
Yeah. Really?
Only 2.
I'm coming over there grouse hunting, and if an elk gets in the way, I'll worry about that later. But
Oh man.
you'll have fun doing that. Grouse hunting, they're all over.
Yeah, you'll find
in the right spot. I don't understand.
No, they're
grouse.
just like grouse.
Some days, some years there's hundreds of them. Some years there's none. So
It depends on if they looked up during the rainstorm that spring or not.
Right.
or whether or not the eggs got soft in the moisture in the rain. Didn't make it through.
Lots of grouse, lots of black bear, and then every now and then you get lucky and see a deer.
Mm-hmm.
There's deer all over, but every now and then you get lucky and see one.
Yeah.
So.
That's get lucky and see
We saw a
one.
forked horn buck last year in the road by camp, and I hadn't even thought about it. Are there deer here? And like, oh yeah, they're all over. That same thing. That was the only deer we saw in 8 days of hunting.
But there are lots of blacktail on the coast. Yeah.
So if somebody was going to come and challenge themselves to do this, are they crazy to think that they should only come for 5 days of hunting, or is it going to take longer?
If you were able to predict the weather and could find an area that had elk in it already, that you didn't have to find the elk, I think 5 days would give you a good chance of killing a bull. We typically kill 1 bull a week on average throughout the season, so 3, 4 bulls a year. But it depends a lot on the weather. So if it's raining, to me, why even bother? I might go look for rubs in areas I haven't been yet, or look for some sort of sign. But as far as killing an elk in those conditions is pretty tough. So if you could pick the 5 days, you could probably be successful.
So you don't hunt in the rain because you don't like to hunt in the rain, or it's not a good time to hunt?
There's a lot of, it's loud, it's windy. The elk are on their feet moving. In order to get an answer, you got to be pretty close already. I just think it's exhausting.
Oh.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It discourages you. I would rather not go through that emotional roller coaster and just wait for the weather to be nice again.
We're on the same page, Shannon. If I never hunt anything again in the rain, it's not going to bother me. I'm not going to feel like I missed out on anything.
What's crazy is we hunted the second to last day over there in an absolute downpour. I mean, it was a true rainstorm. You would get more wet going through the brush than walking out in the rain.
Probably.
Just imagine in a downpour being out in the open and 4x that going through the brush. It was just miserable, water running down your back. And
it's not so much the rain too, like you're saying, it's everything else.
And then everything's wet for 24 hours after the rain.
Yeah.
And you have to crawl through it. So
I've developed this problem about hunting Sitka blacktails in southeast Alaska and climbing from the coast all the way to the alpine. And if it's anything like that, I don't know if I'm tough enough.
Well, we did that too.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
We can talk about that as well.
So is it worse?
Yeah.
The Oregon coast worse than southeast Alaska?
It's the same terrain. It's not as high or as steep for as long as it is there, right? Those mountains are brand new, so they just go from from the ocean to the top in one straight swoop, 2,500 feet. Here you're going to have more shallow ridges and benches and whatnot. So, but as far as thick and cover, absolutely, not much different.
But there's no above timberline on the coast. You
you don't break out into an alpine.
And our vegetation is softer than it is up there. That vegetation up there is a little stiffer. So ours is a lot of salmonberry, which is a nice soft. There's, thorns all over it, scratches you, but it's relatively soft vegetation. So, and the ferns are pretty soft. And
blackberries aren't real soft, but
they're good.
They taste
but you
good.
can usually plow through a lot of that. And you're not plowing through a lot of that southeast Alaska stuff.
No.
Yeah.
So
without
getting
you circle back and you try again and you give up finally and you say, hell with it, I'm going home.
Yeah. It's a little bit of the Oregon coast is a little bit of a combination of southern Arizona and southeast Alaska.
Everything
put into one.
Everything's prickly and, and gouges you.
Exactly.
Gosh, that's like the worst combination.
Yeah. We've hunted Sitka blacktail and we've hunted coos deer. And that Oregon coast kind of meets right in the middle.
Well, I just hate the misery of you getting those torrential rains up there when I'm blacktail hunting. And I just hate it. I get mad. I get edgy. I get pissed off for no other. I don't know what a better word is to say. I just get away from me.
Right. And we felt like that. It was almost claustrophobic feeling you get in some of that thick brush and you can't push through it anymore. Physically, you can't push your way through it. And you turn around, you're like, I just came through 300 yards of this. I have to go back through all of it. And you get that. I just want to run right now. I just want to run straight through it and break something.
Yeah. To get to a point where that bull's only a couple hundred yards away.
Yeah.
But you have to back out and swing around to completely
And I know
direction.
he's in a nice open place.
Yep.
That's what's frustrating.
Oh, really?
he's
So
sitting there
you know
listening.
that he's not going to just.
No, he's not in that. Usually those big bulls aren't in that. They don't like that stuff hitting their face.
Oh, okay.
So they're usually, and when we kill them, and that's how you discover these nice places, and you ask yourself, why didn't I hunt this before? Well, you didn't know it was there, you know.
Yeah.
So you get down in there, you find this wide open park-like setting, but you had to come 300 yards through all that salmonberry or the vine maple, you know, and all that good stuff, or the salal and the Oregon grape. It's just brutal stuff. But once you get to him, usually it's pretty pleasant area.
Huh.
So that's what
so
keeps
cool.
me going.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me
Finding
pushing
that
through
area.
it. Yeah, knowing that he's probably in a place I can kill him.
So when you hear a bugle, because you're saying I got to close that 300 yards through this jungle brush, normally, and I know there's always the exception to every rule, are you from where you first hear them to where you end up having an encounter? Is it 500 yards? Is it 1,000 yards? Is it a mile? Is it
200 yards?
Yeah, no, rarely you're going to hear him that far away. So probably not going to hear an elk much more than 600 yards, 700 yards in this country, or in that country.
Huh.
So, yeah, it's not, we're rarely over 300 or 400 yards from the top of the canyon to the bottom. I mean, it's usually that far. It's not a distance. The challenge isn't distance.
Yeah.
The challenge is the terrain or the vegetation of the terrain.
Yeah, and the topography.
Yeah.
It might only be 1,200 yards to get to or 1,200 feet to get to the bottom in a straight line.
Right.
And for us, it might take us a half a mile to circumnavigate the vegetation to get down there, you know.
Yep.
And with all the other factors in play too, because you still are checking wind. You know, you're still stopping and looking at your maps to make sure that your route to that bull is the best route that you can take. So there's a lot of other factors that come into it.
So do you drop a pin on your GPS or your like smartphone mapping and say, all right, I think he's right here. So if you start wandering and floundering, it's like, all right, I know exactly where he was.
We do. Usually you don't have to use that because you can still hear him.
Okay.
So ideally that's the case, is that we're always interacting with him and we're on our way to him. Sometimes, like I said before, is you may lose track of him because the terrain has made it so you can't really hear him, or you're not loud enough for him to react to it. And then we'll have to use that. But it doesn't happen all that much. And we study the topography long before we leave, the ridge line or the landing, wherever we're coming from. So I know what to expect down in there. I don't know if I can walk a straight line to him, and usually that's not the case. So, as much as I would like to go straight at him, my route is usually, whatever it's allowing me to do. So
That's a nice thing with a GPS or a smartphone app, is you're able to see topography now. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just he's over on the opposite hillside. Oh, there's 3 little hidden draws down there. He's in that middle one, and you can see where you're at in relation to that once you drop down in there. So it's, like you said, 15 years ago, we didn't have that advantage at all. And even with the GPS, it's come so far since GPS has kind of advanced the technology. And so, it's definitely a game changer.
And this last year, Shannon started running an iPad.
No
So
way.
it's got a bigger screen, more view, bigger area.
just pull it out.
Yeah.
How do you keep that from getting destroyed in that weather and
My
conditions?
pack, so, Well, like I said, more often than not, I'm not hunting in the rain, so it's fine.
Okay.
I want that nice 70-degree weather.
There you go.
Sleeping
in, hunting during the middle
That
of the day.
right there, you've got me suckered in, man. I'm gonna.
I never understood why you guys get up so darn early, man.
Because we're
Usually
stupid.
'cause we have to hike
You
4
realize
miles
this is my
to get
vacation
to the
too.
Yeah. Taking vacation time. I'm not getting up early.
Oh, that's so funny you say that. We were on an elk hunt one time. We had a guest hunter, and about the 4th morning of getting up that early and having no sleep, he did say, "You realize this is supposed to be a vacation, don't you?"
You're going to need a vacation from those kind of vacations.
Exactly. So when you come home from an elk hunt, you have to spend 3 days recovering.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You only took a week of vacation for elk hunting? Well, no, I took 2 weeks off. I have 2 weeks. The second one's to recover from elk hunting.
Exactly.
Oh, man. This sounds like way too much fun.
It is a blast.
I wish I wasn't booked up already for September. Next year, I'm keeping that clean.
Yeah, this year the dates aren't great. The season ends a little early.
Yeah.
And then it resets after that. But it's still that latter half of the year latter half of the season.
2020 will be a good year.
And it's an over-the-counter tag for archery?
Yeah.
Straight up.
Wow.
And you can hunt pretty much the whole Oregon coast, right?
Yeah.
The whole state. You can hunt Rockies one day and jump over and hunt Roosevelt's the next day with the same tag.
Yeah, you could hunt Roosevelt's, Cascade Roosevelt's, and then Rockies all consecutively in 3 days in a row if you wanted to. You could drive the whole state and hunt them that way.
Roosevelt's, Cascade Roosevelt's?
Yeah.
So you got two groups of Roosevelt's there?
Yeah, they just consider them different. They're pretty much the same animal.
Based on geography?
Yeah,
where they live.
Yeah, based on I-5, really. That's not necessarily a natural.
Not geography.
Yeah. No.
But they identify them as a true Roosevelt west of Interstate 5. Right. Everything to the east of that, which, as you know, until you get basically to the Pacific Crest Trail, everything to the west should theoretically be a Roosevelt.
Okay.
Then once you get up there, there's the ability for them to crossbreed.
Yeah.
And you'll find a crossbred, a Cascade Roosevelt, and they look way more like a Rocky Mountain bull. They're bigger than any coastal Roosevelt. And then, once you get east of the PCT, then it's all Rocky Mountain.
So somebody's talking about a 360-inch Roosevelt bull. It's a crossbreed.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Those coastal Roosevelts get big.
Yeah.
If they're allowed to live 10, 12 years, they are big animals.
Yeah.
With lots of inches on their head.
And it's usually about 50% mass from what I've seen.
Right,
Those things, when they get big, they're just massive.
Yeah. They're not real long. A guy that we used to hunt with, he killed one that was grossed at 347, netted 341.
Yeah. And that is 100% Roosevelt.
Yeah.
100% Roosevelt. Right on the ocean. So.
Huh.
But they do get big, They have to have the right conditions and everything.
Age and all the factors.
Original genetics.
And genetics and age and nutrition, I imagine, are your key factors. I expect them all to be big.
I love it.
Yep.
And to me, that's the great thing about hunting them is I don't know what this elk looks like. I've never seen him.
12 yards away.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's why I love calling elk, because the elk walks in, you don't know until he steps out.
That's
and
like
honestly,
Christmas
for
morning.
me, it really doesn't matter at that point. It's like if he's in a shooting lane, he's getting shot.
Exactly.
So,
opening up
so
a new
Cory,
present.
you shot a really nice Roosevelt bull last year.
I shot a good bull last year, yeah.
What was the date?
I killed him on September 6th.
6th.
Yeah, it was the day before my birthday, which was close to a birthday bull.
Yeah.
But it was on the 6th. It was early in the year. We hunted earlier this year hard because we were going to Wyoming for the second half of the season. So we put a lot of effort into the first portion of the season, which by then, usually by around the 6th or 7th is when we kind of just get started. Mm-hmm. We'll go down Labor Day weekend and basically it's kind of a scouting trip. We'll check on bulls that we knew from last year. And then from there, I might go back to work for a week, and then the following weekend after Labor Day, then from there on through the rest of the season, I'll take that whole time off or not. Sometimes I'm working. But but this year we had to target them early just because we were leaving on the 15th and heading to Wyoming. And, but yeah, he was a good bull. We just kind of rough scored him. He's like 265, 270, which for a Roosevelt is a big bull.
Giant.
Yeah.
He's real thick. He's a really, really cool bull. So that was a fun one.
Yeah, that bull's a perfect example of how you just don't hunt the wrong wind. So the first day we found him, we moved in on him, and the wind was blowing right to where he was answering from. So we just turned around and left. Came back the next afternoon. He's in the exact same place, like probably the same bed. And we just recreated that entire scenario. This time, the wind was right, and we got in on him and killed him.
Yep.
Wow.
We just had to come up a creek draw and work in underneath of him and push up the hill. And he came down to us. He met us at the bottom. We just didn't, where I was at set up, I couldn't see him. We had a fun we're kind of working on a fun project with a younger kid who actually started watching Shannon's ASP videos back in, like, a guy gave him one in 2005, and so he's doing a project with it. So that film, we haven't even released my bull from this last year. Kid named Jack Lander, who was filming our hunt. And it's kind of a neat project because he even talks on the video about how, back in 2005, one of his dad's friends gave him a DVD, and it was Shannon's original DVD that he put out in 2006, but it was the 2005 season. And he's like, and here I am 10 years later, so he's only 25 now, hunting with these guys. And so we filmed that whole thing, and it was like textbook. We picked him up in town. We got up to camp. We got ready. We dropped. We went. I mean, we knew where that bull was from the day before, but we got there. We located him within 2 hours. That bull. I shot the bull, and he's just like, "This is what it is."
Too easy.
You couldn't draw it up any better. So that was a fun hunt. That was a really, really good, and it was exactly what we would want it to be.
Yeah. Right. And if we tried hunting him that first day when the wind was wrong, you probably would have blown him out and he wouldn't have been there the next day. So having patience like that is...
How far do they go when you blow them out?
It's hard to say. It's hard to keep
have you ever
track
got
of.
Obviously, you don't see them, so it's hard to say that's the same bull.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I do know this, that they're less likely to respond. And a lot of times if they blow out over a canyon top and into the next one, I don't follow them. Because I'm not going to keep up with a herd of elk. I'm not going to be able to chase them down.
So they don't just run 300 yards and hunker back down in the hole?
They may run for a little bit, stop and walk, but they're just not as comfortable as they were. So the likelihood of getting him in that right emotional state it's a lot of work. It's probably not going to happen. So I would rather not risk that, and our time is precious.
Yeah.
So out of the 3 weeks to a month we get to hunt, you're only going to you got to have the right conditions, you got to have the right animal in the right spot. So I want to take advantage of every situation I get. So
And if you're hunting 20 days, say you hunt 20 days for elk, how many different bulls do you probably hear? 20?
I probably rarely hear 20 bulls in a season.
In 20 days of hunting. And see, there's been days in Wyoming where I've heard 10 or 12 bulls in one morning, different bulls.
Last year,
And so it's it's a completely, and for me it was a little frustrating at first because we would cover what I felt was a lot of really good elk country and not see a single track, not see a rub, and not hear a bugle. I thought there are just no elk here. But then you realize there's only one bull and 3 cows in this whole drainage, and you've got to go clear to the next drainage to find one more bull and 3 more cows. And
so a bugle, getting an answer for me means a lot more than getting an answer in Wyoming or even Eastern Washington or Oregon, right? So,
and the other thing is when we jump an elk in Wyoming or Idaho or something, I'll follow it for 3.5 or 4 miles, knowing it's eventually going to stop and bed down or hunker down there, and I can hunt it again. Whereas there, it just seemed like every time that we bumped an elk and it went over the top of the ridge, we never heard an elk the rest of the day. We never saw an elk the rest of the day.
Yeah.
A lot of times they won't have to run very far to get comfortable in our country. They'll run for a few hundred yards, and then they can just stop and meander through and walk. They can walk away from you in that country. We can't move that fast to keep up with them. It's just impossible. You can't run unless you get up onto a road, a logging road, and then you can run them. But you just can't run in that area. But the vegetation, if they turn around and they're only 100 yards away from you and they can't see that threat, they'll stop.
And they'll know they can hear you. Nothing's going to sneak up on them.
Yeah, you're not going to sneak through.
There's guys that's all they do. They track them down, and they're very successful at it.
Oh, wow.
But, that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
Those guys that do that year in, those guys are studs.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy that as much as and I'm out there to enjoy what I'm doing.
Totally.
So
there's nothing like calling.
No. And I think if those guys ever experienced what I experienced, they would stop doing what they're doing. I want everybody to hunt like me because that gives me a chance to be successful on those same elk that they're hunting. So if they could experience what I do, they would probably stop chasing them around the mountains.
Yeah, and what Shannon's done in the last 20 plus years of hunting Roosevelt's is created a very efficient system. When somebody like myself, 7-8 years ago, when I started hunting with him, and you start learning that system, and I realized all the inefficiencies that I was doing when I was hunting before, I'm like, man, you just cut all the fluff out, and if you really target what you're doing, it's kind of like walking through a process. If this, then this, and you just move through very, very efficiently, and the end result is almost effortless. I mean, it is tough. It's still challenging, but it feels effortless. When you're done, you're like, well, that was it, rather than feeling like you just are working hard to make to accomplish the goal. This is really systematically approaching these animals to kill them in a very systematic and methodical way that, if done right, should work 100% of the time. Right. And that's probably why the success rate with our group or the guy, or even with Shannon, is extremely high. Year after year after year, repeatedly processing and killing these animals in the exact same way, lends other people to look at you and go, why are you guys not the 8 to 10% success? You guys are the killing the 90% of the elk.
Yeah. Which is interesting because you talked, you said you usually kill one elk a week.
Right.
And I think for listeners listening to this, having you guys and us agreeing, that's very successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for somebody that's coming out going, this is somebody that's been hunting elk for 20 plus years, who lives there, who breathes and is passionate about elk, and their success is one elk in a week of hunting. For somebody coming from out of the area, no idea of the terrain, no idea of scouting, to do that, it's a tall
challenge.
order.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
And that's an average too. I mean, sometimes it'll take us, 2 weeks to get all these bulls figured out,
and then we might kill 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. But it averages out to about one a week. And sometimes it depends. Like if we're hunting together, then, he'll focus on killing the one bull that we find based on, whether it's size of the rubs or what we've seen in the past season, and I will just film. And then once he's killed that bull, then we reverse roles and then hunt different that way too. So,
do you use trail cameras?
No, we put them up. We've tried, and just you get nothing.
Random.
Yeah.
So even if you get in an area where you can tell this bull is here year after year, there's rubs here, you don't go back and put a trail camera in.
No, like I said, we've tried to do it, but it just never worked out. So and they get stolen. It's frustrating. So
I've ran them in the Cascades, but it's different. Than
I don't rely on that. I mean, the rubs tell me everything I need to know. If I find a tree that he can't bend over and it's 9.5 feet tall, that bull's got probably 40 inches of bone on his head.
Yeah.
Wow. And he can, these elk, and you pretty much over time, how tall they are and what they do when they're rubbing. Yeah. And when those horns are swinging over, you can almost figure out to T exactly what they look like.
Yeah.
I know if I find a lot of nicks way up high, he's probably got a crown on him. A lot of little
extra
nicks.
Gouges in the tree.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's like unwrapping a Christmas present that you've shaken a little bit, right? You think you know what it is.
How big is he really?
Exactly, and then he gets to come in.
Yeah, and if we find a big rub, I mean, we'll hunt that rub for days in a row until we finally find that bull. Right. Or maybe he's realized that he's just not there. Or we're just in the wrong area. He's traveled a little further out than what we thought. But really focus on, especially, I kind of became 6'3" with a pretty good reach. I become the litmus test of where it separates everything out. Right. If it's well above my reach, we can just set up camp right there because we're not going far.
Yeah,
I know that. So Shannon will not leave. I couldn't do anything to drag him away. Be like, the Swedish bikini team's just over here. And he'd be like, I don't care.
300-inch Roosevelt.
6'3" rub.
Exactly.
A 300-inch Roosevelt is a
giant.
I haven't killed one.
Yeah.
And I've killed tons of bulls that are in the 250, 260, 270 range.
Which are big bulls.
Which are big Roosevelt. But to get one over 300 is a very special animal.
Yep.
Wow.
So now he's killed a Rocky Mountain bull that's 393 too, but he doesn't ever talk about that because it's not nearly as impressive to him as a 300-inch Roosevelt. So,
wow.
Well, that was a special tag and in a special place. And, they grow them like that. So.
Yep.
But to find a 300-inch Roosevelt on the Oregon coast, there's nothing special about it. Those elk are not managed for quality.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're finding an animal that's evaded people for 7, 8, 10 years.
Yeah.
Which is a special
That's
animal.
Impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Yep.
Well, the noise is starting to pick up here.
I
wonder what we're going to do to block out that stupid speaker that we got in there.
Hopefully they don't come on very often. But
I hope not, or they turn the volume down because I was about ready. If I had had a firearm, I'd have shot a hole in that speaker.
I'll borrow one of the Hoyt bows over there.
There you go.
Plenty of firearm manufacturers that one right across the way there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know, how'd you guys meet? What Angry Spike Productions? Tell us about that. I know you've been making DVDs for 15 years?
So I started,
like
the first DVD I actually made was in 2001. It wasn't a DVD, it was a VHS. That is no joke.
So for any of the listeners who don't know what a VHS is.
Right.
young listeners.
I've got 3 or 4 of them downstairs I'm trying to get rid of. So if you want an antique, let me know. I'll send it to you.
But yeah, my mom bought me a handy cam or whatever it was for Christmas, long time ago. And I was telling people about these Roosevelt, and I grew up with the belief that, everybody was telling me they didn't bugle, they just couldn't call them in. And so I started doing that and watching Larry D and Dwight Shue and Glenn Berry and all those guys. And these elk, and I used to hound dog hunt, and I would hear elk bugle during the August, September timeframe. So these are a social animal. So I just got really interested in understanding what that was. So, and then when I started being successful at it, my group of friends and family didn't believe me, so I started filming it.
Oh, okay.
And then that just kind of took off. I made that VHS, and it had everybody in the local area wanted it. So then I got a group of guys together, and we made the first DVD, which was, it's a lot of work making a DVD. So,
Yeah.
Especially back then. It's not as easy as iMovie and, published to YouTube now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we made a DVD, and it was, more popular than I could really handle. I couldn't keep up with demand. We actually got it in a lot of the big chain stores like Sportsman's Warehouse and whatnot. Yeah. And it was pretty overwhelming for me. And I made 2005, season 2005, season 2006. And feedback from my customers didn't want to date it, so I started naming them Raging Roosevelt and Roosevelt Rampage and stuff like that. Then I started making DVDs that were multiple years and not just one season. And then YouTube hit. I'm always late on everything. I came to VHS right before it went out. I was in DVD for a while, and then I got into YouTube way late. So always.
When you say way late, when did you get into YouTube?
We just started putting stuff up. A year and a half or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your YouTube channel? Angry Spike?
Angry Spike, yeah.
Okay.
And you putting all your old content on YouTube eventually?
So I do have it all chopped up, and actually it still sells a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't make any money on it per se, but these guys, I don't want to steal that from these guys that have actually purchased it. So I think we'll pull it off there for a little while and then release it on YouTube.
Yeah. And you beat us to the punch on the old stuff with your recent Arizona
the vintage
bull.
hunts.
Yeah, the vintage stuff. But the vintage stuff that we have is hard too with the quality.
Yeah.
Are you okay putting out average quality?
And and honestly, the feedback we've gotten, because we just released the first one a week ago, and I think we've got 30-some thousand views on it, which, we don't have a huge YouTube following yet either, but all the feedback has been, I love, it's 10 years ago. It doesn't seem vintage.
Predator camo.
Yeah, but I mean, you're looking at footage that's all low definition.
Yeah.
I went to YouTube when my guy who edited it sent me the link on YouTube. I went and clicked on it. I'm like, that's real grainy. I went to the settings. I'm like, where's the HD setting? Like 480 is the highest resolution I can watch this in, but everybody loves it. They're like, this is old school. Like it's 2008.
And it's interesting. I can go back and watch my hunting from then to now, and I've adapted. I've changed my strategies changed a little bit.
Yep.
I've cut out a lot of the BS. I don't cow call. I don't ever make a cow call because that's not my target animal. Yeah. So I bugle and bugle only.
So you're saying this drawer full of old mini DV tapes I have, that I should pull that out and have one of my editors recycle that?
Oh, man.
Wow.
People will tear it up. I love it.
One of the biggest comments I've got is, wow, watching Cory hunt when he had hair.
Yeah, for me it'll be, these are the pre-LASIX videos, huh? They had LASIX in 2007. So,
it was fun watching you like old mountain mimicry stuff.
Yeah.
Because, that's what we wear. And, Sitka obviously back then kind of brought it to the mainstream. And it was fun to watch that Arizona hunt,
Totally. Yeah, and you're seeing the old, I've got a picture that I shot a cougar when I was, I think, 12, and posted a picture for Throwback Thursday on Instagram or something. And just to see the change in technology, the pins on my bow, they were all the individual screw, you move each one, dial it in and out, left and right, up and down individually. The rest was just the old metal prong that sticks up. Arrows were all the aluminum, Game Getter XX75s from back in the... that was in the mid-'80s.
Yeah. Boy, it's a lot easier now, isn't it?
It's just,
You can go buy a package bow today that we would dreamt about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we didn't even think about paper tuning back then because you couldn't paper tune a bow. They weren't made to be tuned.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's the YouTube channel. What else you guys got? Instagram, Facebook,
We do, yeah.
website?
Yeah, all that. Actually. Angry Spike Productions, Angry Spike on Instagram.
Yeah.
And the Facebook,
And the
which
Facebook
is
page, yeah.
Angry Spike, yeah.
Which Facebook is obviously just everything from Instagram.
Yeah.
Pushed
you guys
over
just-
there. You
okay.
know, just keep everything connected. And I don't
He's our social media guy. I don't
Yeah.
do a lot of that.
Okay.
I don't post it. You know, I'm not a content is king kind of mindset where
Yeah.
it's just post, content of everything. More than not, we just put out stuff when I feel it's fitting
You have
and
something
necessary
quality.
to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it's good images to post, whether it's a short clip of a video or something like that, the fun stuff. I mean, I'll post stuff to our story, but that doesn't live anywhere, for more than 24 hours basically. But that's just kind of hey, we're at the Expo and we're going to meet up with you guys or something.
Yeah.
So we're not real heavily active in that because that's not our game.
Yeah.
I mean, if the social media and everything went away and we still got the elk hunt, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a peripheral fun aspect around the whole deal.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to interact.
My camera crew's in charge of social media when we're in the field. I don't know how to do a story. Yeah, I was at Sheep Show last week in the booth with Leopold, and I had to ask one of their employees to show me how to do a story. They said, well, do a story because you're here. I'm like, here's my phone. Can you do that?
Well, let me tell you a story, son.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was for
Back
me.
in 84.
Yeah.
That kind of story.
But the website is Angry Spike or angryspikeproductions.com.
Both will get you there.
Yeah, both will get you there. We
okay.
actually have both domains.
I bought both URLs.
Okay.
It'll get you there. And on our website right now, we do have all the old DVDs are on there in VHX format, so you can go on there and download them and watch them. I think I have a collective setup of all of them for like $9.99.
Yeah.
So less than what the cost of one.
So if
old
somebody
DVD
wants
was.
to get a fix on Roosevelt hunting.
Yeah, they can do that. But if anybody's listening, and eventually we will put that stuff on YouTube. But for right now, if they don't want to wait, they can pay $9.99 to do that.
Yep.
And we should probably just make it free to everybody because nobody likes to pay for hunts anymore anyway.
No, I have a VHX channel also.
Yeah.
And when I first did it, boy, I'm like, man, this is actually working out. Now I get my reports from how many downloads there are.
Yeah.
It's like,
one a month.
Yeah. Every time we go a few weeks with nobody downloading something or buying one, we're like, okay, maybe we should shut it down. Then somebody will inevitably buy that collection. And, you don't want to feel like you almost want to call them up and say, hey, I'm going to give you your $9.99 back because we're going to put this on YouTube. Just wait for a day or two and you can watch it there. But to your question earlier, though, so I graduated with Shannon's two younger brothers who were twins. Shannon was a senior when I was a freshman, and we grew up in the same town. My dad was heavily involved in wrestling in the local area, and so Shannon, being a wrestler all through high school, knew my dad through that. So youth wrestling, we all wrestled together, played baseball with his little brothers, and so we've known each other since we were little. When I converted over from hunting black powder into archery, I was going to go hunt the Oregon coast, and we were talking at a friend's wedding one day, and so I'm going down there anyway, so maybe I can come tag along, and that was 8 years ago.
Packed a bull out that same day, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
cool.
Haven't got rid of him since.
Yeah. Stage 5 clinger.
Now, it's hard to find people that have the same vacation schedule or something like that. I'm unique in the fact I pretty much take off the entire month of September, so pretty fortunate like that. And Cory's one of the few guys that actually get to enjoy that same kind of schedule.
Yeah.
So.
They can hunt all of September and not have to take vacation.
Right, yeah, that guy. Yeah. And I don't compete with his goals. Our goals are the same, but they're different. Our goals about hunting elk are very similar, but our goals about what we're looking for are different. So it actually works out very well because, if we set up on a bull and I know it's not one that he's going to shoot, I'm okay shooting a smaller bull. And I also know exactly what he's looking for. So if it's a scenario where I call in a bull that I have an opportunity to shoot, and I'm looking at it and this thing's 320 inches, I will let that bull walk, and we will come back and hunt that bull the next day without my bow in my hand, with his bow in his hand. So, I'm not going to take that goal away from him, out of pure selfishness. And sometimes that's a very, very difficult thing to find is guys who aren't
Play as a
looking.
team.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to kill a bull to be successful.
Yeah, me
for
either.
sure. But I mean, they taste good.
Yeah.
So, don't get me wrong.
But you
I'll
can't
take
kill
one.
big bulls if you
You
shoot
can't
little bulls.
kill the big ones if you shoot.
maybe
the
that's
little
why
ones.
I've never
That's
shot a
right.
big one. Then.
That's right.
I get a little bit too itchy there.
Yeah,
you've got a
several bulls last year you passed on just because they weren't the right bull.
I say passed on, once I realized what they are, I just didn't pursue hunting them.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually have a shot on a lot of them, just stopped the pursuit. So
Well, you don't
could
got.
I have shot them or not? Maybe not.
You don't got to worry about that with me. If I ever get close to a Roosevelt, I don't care if he's just got a polished knob.
And that guy may sound as big as any of them. That's the weird thing about Rosies is it doesn't matter how big he is. If he is the dominant bull there, or he thinks he is, he will present himself like he's a monster.
Yeah.
And he will come running right into you. So
Yeah, and make no mistake, they are vocal. They are very vocal bulls. When you start working one, they will scream at you all the time. And they chuckle a lot more, I think, than the Rocky Mountain bulls is one thing that we've recognized as well. Is those chuckles mean a lot more, because you'll hear guys that'll say, don't chuckle, don't chuckle. Well, if all you're hearing is those bulls chuckling at you, real short squeal, and then just hammer you with chuckles, that tells you something. Learn from that. Understand what they're trying to tell you. Utilize
That's funny
that back.
because almost all of the experienced, successful Roosevelt hunters who archery hunt and call have said they don't even bugle anymore. They just chuckle.
once you're in
Really?
close, a lot of times that's all you do.
Wow.
Yeah.
This sounds like more fun every minute. You guys got me hooked, man. I'm like a gut hooked perch right now.
We had a rare opportunity year before last on Shannon's bull. We actually located the bull from the edge of a clearing. It was a kind of a younger reprod unit, but he was originally with all of his cows on the backside of a knob in a big stand of timber. And he ended up coming up a ridge and meeting us in this reprod, which sucks to hunt in, but it was exposed. And as we were coming down the ridge working in on him, we actually had an opportunity to film him a lot through that whole process. And so you could see, Shannon bugle that bull, lifting his head up, that bull bugling right back and then chuckling, lots of chuckles. And as he's working in and he's trying to find us, he's making noises, doing the same thing that we are, trying to relocate as we're moving in. And he got into a point where we had stopped to set up. It was one of the only lanes we had. It was only about 20 yards long by maybe 15 yards wide, and on a ridge, so it's not very wide. And that bull stops on the backside of these trees, and he's just sitting there looking around. Well, he doesn't know exactly where we are, so Shannon just kind of moans, and as soon as he did that, that bull's antlers snapped around right to where we're at, and he pushed right through the firs. And next thing you know, he's standing there at 19 yards, and he's looking straight up, and he still doesn't even recognize that we are there. He's looking for that elk. And as soon as he kind of just turns his head to look, and right when that happens on video, that's when Shannon shoots, and quarter two just drills him. But it was like exactly what we talk about that whole hunt, but you actually get to see the whole process, because locating the bull in the open, watching him working in, the way that he reacts, the way that he stops and chuckles, looking up the hill, trying to find us, was kind of neat to actually be able to put it in, into a big open image rather than just visualizing it through your mind on what's happening when he's coming through timber, where we never see him until he gets to that 19 yards and stops. So that was kind of a unique, fun opportunity to film that, which was good.
And that's so interesting. I mean, it just made a picture in my mind. We get to see Rocky Mountain elk. I mean, if it's Montana and they're out in the open, I mean, you just, there's areas in North Idaho that are like the Oregon coast and thick, but for the most part, a Rocky Mountain elk hunter knows habits, knows everything that an elk does, what it's thinking, its emotion, how it reacts to everything. That's why Roosevelt elk hunting is probably so tough, because you can't see, you can't hear.
No.
All of the things that would help you learn about their behavior is really limited from you.
Yeah.
Right, being able to, like, if I can hear him, I can usually figure out exactly what he's doing. I can hear him coming. And if he stops, then I'll hit him immediately to keep that momentum going. Yep. And if I can see that, and that's exactly what happened with that bull, is I could see this. So before he had a chance to really, evaluate the environment, I just kept him coming my way. So he started to stop, I moaned, and he just kept right on going. So, you guys are fortunate in the fact you can see this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But on the flip side, it's also a negative for us, because they can see us now, so we have to watch our movement a lot more. Exactly. So there's definitely benefits both ways, but I think just learning to understand Roosevelt elk, hunters are at a disadvantage because you don't get to
it's
observe
a longer
them.
learning curve, right?
Yeah. And one thing that Shannon said a couple years ago to me that stuck in really, really heavily was that, a lot of these elk are like children. You want to keep their attention, or they will get disinterested and walk. Yep. They will bail out, So consistently doing something to make them feel like there is another elk in the area is is beneficial, very beneficial, in terms of keeping that momentum moving. Otherwise, he thinks that bull's turned and retreated, and he'll go right back to his cows. Sometimes you have to wait for an opportunity of him to get disinterested in order to move into an area where you can then get a shot. I had to do that a few years ago in a bull that got hung up where I just didn't have a shot. I had to just clam up. And as soon as he turned to walk off, he walked into the one lane that I had to shoot. So sometimes you can utilize that knowledge that they eventually will think that I ran that bull out of here and then turn and go someplace else to your advantage. So, there's a lot of little variables that go into it, but somebody who's, gets all nerded out on killing Roosevelts.
I've studied them, and I've my career is, data analytics, really. So I've collected data. I broke elk hunting down into, where elk like to live and how do I get them to respond and what's the most likely scenario I can get them to come in and how do I kill them? So I broke it down. In order to get more successful, I focus on those little things.
Create a process.
Created a process.
Make it efficient.
Right. So I went to a heavy arrow setup because I'm shooting through brush and whatnot. Bugle twice to get an answer, and it's all learned over years and years and years and logging that data. And it's our success rate once I get a bull to answer is pretty high. So, so it's worked.
That's what we always talk too, that you'll hear people say they called in 31 bulls but didn't fill their tag. And I'm like, once I get to 4 bulls, if I haven't drawn back and shot an arrow, something's wrong.
Right.
Like I'm not doing something right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's, I'm the same. I want to
up.
make the most out of every situation I have. And if the situation isn't good, I'll leave that situation and go look for one that is.
Yeah. And you probably didn't actually call in 31 bulls.
Yeah.
They located 31.
They heard
maybe,
31 bugle,
they heard 31 bugles, but call them in, you're more than likely going to have.
I think calling in is a misconception anyway, because 95, 98% of the distance ever covered is by me to the elk.
Yeah.
Rarely you get that one that just, for whatever reason, he comes running 400 yards. But that is
rare.
That's a unicorn in a dewy meadow with
the rainbow pot of gold.
I don't expect that to be the case. I expect me swimming through Salmonberry and Devil's Club to get to him. So that's how I do it.
Well, I'm
bring
going to
bring a machete, Randy.
I will.
It's clippers, like seriously?
Loppers or something.
Yeah, we didn't know that. And like the 5th day we're there, Brent, the guy that we're hunting with, reaching in his back pocket. We're in front. He's behind us. We're going through everything. He's back there with clippers. I turn, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, opening the trail. Why are we in front and you have the clippers?
Gerber makes a bunch of those kind of devices. So they sent me a bunch of machetes. I'm like, what the hell will I ever use these for? But it sounds like
now
you know.
Well, Angry Spike Productions is going to get a lot of YouTube views for me over the next few months here. I hope I don't become a nuisance to you guys asking questions in preparation for next year. You guys will be, why in the heck did we ever tip this guy?
Well, if we didn't enjoy sharing the knowledge and having the conversations, we wouldn't be sitting here too. So
I think
there's a tug of war with that. Do you give out? Are you okay giving out too much information? Corey, you and I talked about that yesterday. Or do you just keep it all to yourself? And there's some people who won't give out any secrets, but you still have to get out there and do the work. It doesn't just happen.
That's what we talked. I mean, you look at success rates at anything that takes a little bit of effort, and it's probably going to be about 10%.
Yep.
You look at entrepreneurs, business, you look at elk hunting, archery elk hunting, all these different things hover about 10%. And I saw a quote that summed it all up, and it said, 100% of the population has desires, but only 10% has ambition.
Yeah.
And it clicked. It's like ambition is putting hard work with your desire.
Yeah.
And when it comes to elk hunting, you can share every tip. And I mean, you've shared a couple things with me that's like, next time I go Roosevelt hunting, I'm doing that and that and that, and I will be successful.
Yeah.
But most of the people won't apply it. They're stubborn, they're stuck in their ways, or they don't want to put in the work to do it.
Yep.
You can share everything, the exact blueprint and roadmap to be successful, but it still takes work. And that's where most people, I think, fall off. And if you're willing to put in the work, anybody can be successful at anything they want to do.
And how many states fish and game departments have called you up and said, dang it, Cory, after you launched Elk 101, like our success rate went from
through the
8% to 50%.
We're going to have to shut down Elk Hunting this year to save the
We're
elk.
going to buy that business from you so we can shut the website down. It doesn't happen. I don't think the success rates have changed at all, because people still have to go out there and do it. And a lot of times, most of the most difficult thing is finding the elk. And where we hunt, that is a very, very big challenge. You can tell them exactly how to kill them, but if they can't go find them, then they're going to still be the same 0% success if they don't know where the elk are.
The success rates haven't changed. However, the population of people hunting has. So you do have more animals being taken from what I've seen.
In certain areas.
Right.
And I think overall, hunting numbers are down, but for Roosevelt elk,
for archery,
there's definitely more Roosevelt archery elk hunters than there were 20 years ago.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people, and I think some of that is the knowledge that people are starting to gain, and they're able to actually see what other people are doing, and they think, oh, now I can go do that. Most new archery hunters are going to want to go where there's a really, really large population of elk, and so they run to places like Wyoming or Montana or Colorado, and that's their only experience. And then once they get to where they see a ton of elk, they go to the Oregon coast, they get real frustrated because they're like, oh, this is nothing like, so then they bail and go back,
So, well, a lot of people ask me, what's the best thing I could do to prepare for being a successful elk hunter? I tell them, well, live your whole life for 54 years like I have, being below average. So the only way you're going to succeed at anything is just don't quit. I think too many people, they just got it in their mind it's going to be easy or whatever, and they quit just before they're about ready to have success. And I've never been good at anything, so I've never
had the luxury of quitting and achieving anything.
That's I mean, if I ever do have any success, it's just because I'm too bullheaded to quit. I don't know how you teach that.
Exactly.
Well, guys, we got another podcast lined up here, and I'm about ready to wet my diaper.
I could sit here and talk Roosevelt all day.
Me too. I've drank too much coffee and too much water this morning, and if it's like yesterday, it'll take me another half hour to go from here to that sign that says restroom 20 yards away. So
you better run.
But
get your fresh tracks getting over there.
I can't thank you guys enough, man. I was just sitting here listening like, this is an eye opener for me. I hope the audience understands what was just shared here by you guys so generously to our audience.
Thanks for having us on. I mean, we're a real honor to even have an opportunity to sit down with two guys like yourselves that are established as you are in the industry and have a conversation like this and recognize that, Roosevelt elk aren't the same forgotten animal that, everybody hates, so appreciate it.
No, absolutely. And I'm excited. We're going back this fall for sure.
Are you?
Yeah. We haven't locked in where or when. I think it's going to have to be a little earlier, probably like the 5th through the 12th of September. So last year, we didn't even get into any bugling action until the 4th. And then we had to leave the 5th. And so I think we'll hit it early, but it'll be better. So excited.
I'll help you out as much as I can.
The last hour and a half has helped me out tremendously. So I'm excited.
The great thing about Oregon is you can throw a dart at a board and there's elk there. So I don't think you can go to the wrong place.
And there's really not hot spots from what I've seen. It's not like they I mean, if you want to hunt clear cuts, I want that coastal experience.
Well, we cover about 200 miles of that coast.
Wow.
Because we have areas that we know that we've found elk in the past. I mean, so that just tells you that they are that scattered out. A lot of times we'll start way, way south on the coast in the early season, and we will work our way north as the season goes on.
That'd be like me saying I'm going to hunt between Bozeman and Missoula.
Pretty much.
It's 210 miles.
Yep, exactly.
I'm just going to drive along and pick a draw and hike up at one day.
That's crazy. When you said that, I'm like, all right, what would be 200? Okay, I'm gonna hunt all these good spots between Bozeman and Missoula.
Exactly.
Well, Randy's squirming in his chair, so we need to release him to the restroom. But guys, Shannon, Cory, thanks so much.
Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Randy. Folks, thanks for listening. And until the next time, get your arrows sharp and go hunt some Rosies.
That's right.